In this episode, we begin our journey on the edge of North Staffordshire. The great Swythamley estate sprawled across a beautiful landscape bounded to the north by the great peaks of the Roaches and to the south by the wooded valleys around Leek Frith. Let us now explore the great estate on foot and begin our journey by the great boundary wall that still circles the heart of the estate.
The huge wall that surrounds the Swythamley estate was originally constructed in the 19th century. Many of the walls in the Peak District trick us into a belief that they are incredibly ancient. Covered in mosses and lichens, they have the appearance of something that has lasted many centuries. But in fact, most of the walls originate from the mid-18th century during the Enclosure Acts. Before this point, enclosure was often by the individual, and it would lead to arguments and indeed conflicts over who actually owned the land. Even after the Enclosure Acts, some areas still remained unenclosed, namely those vast tracts of endless moorland used as game reserves or often protected for their mineral rights. Around these moorlands, there still crisscrossed a whole network of roads, most of them ancient droveways, from which cattle would be moved to market. Along these paths not only went the cattle and the people, but also the myths and legends of many of these ancient places, and that's what we're going to explore now. This is Lud's Church. This massive chasm in the gritstone was formed at the end of the last ice age, when there was a colossal amount of water in the landscape, so much so that it caused this huge section of land to shift several feet down the hill, revealing this massive ravine in the rock. Of course, because of its temperature, because of the mosses and lichens and ferns clinging to its walls, because of its isolated location, many strange and wonderful legends have grown up around the place.
The most famous legend concerns Walter de Ludac, leader of the Lollards, supporters of John Wycliffe and outlawed by the church for following their own distinct brand of Christianity. Walter and his followers met in the rift for their sermons, but one day they were discovered and a stray shot from one of the forest guards pierced Walter's beautiful granddaughter Alice through the heart. She died there in his arms. A few of the Lollards escaped into the forest, but most were captured and Walter was hung for his so-called crime.
One of the most interesting local legends concerns a Mr. William Mills, who visited Lud Church in the 1870s. Armed only with some ball, a twine and a lantern, he descended one of the small caves in the side of the rift. It soon enlarged and he came upon a gigantic cavern. Inside there he found the remains of small temples and carvings all over the walls. He'd come to the realm of the fairies. It was never seen by human eyes again, but it's still said that little people inhabit this place. And remember, they're not always good beings.
But Lud's Church is not just a place of fairies, and other far more gruesome events have been recorded from within its fractured gritstone walls.
Downstream, the valley enters ancient oak woodland, the tree roots clinging to the hard stone, their branches festooned with mosses and lichens. In the deepest part of the gorge is another realm of the fairies, their homes said to be invisible caves in the living rock.
Bluebell Woods shimmer like a flowing stream. Legend tells that the fairies wove together such places with their spells, and any adult entering alone will be pixie-led by their enchantments. The bells of the plant are thought to call the fairies when disturbed, but lore also says if you can turn one of the flowers inside out without tearing it, you will win the heart of the one you love. Like many other plants, the impact of these deep blue blooms goes back further than you may think. The sticky sap was used by Bronze Age people to glue feathers to their arrows, and in medieval times to bind the pages of early books together. The Latin name for this flower is Endymion, who was the lover of the moon goddess Selene. The goddess put Endymion into eternal sleep so she alone could enjoy his beauty.